Earlier this growing season, I found a really cool, interesting plant, right? It looked a lot like a clover, but I had never seen this type of clover plant before. But it turns out that this is a plant called hare's foot clover, and it's got some pretty cool aspects to it, right? In many ways similar to other types of clovers, but it may also have some unique characteristics and maybe even some precautions unique unto itself as well. I found this growing in kind of like a like a stony kind of, substrate. So it gets pretty full sun, pretty hot, pretty dry in this area. So I'm probably going to go ahead, see if I can dig this up, put it in some part of a garden, and see if it can kind of like self-seed. This year is the first year that I've actually kind of encountered this type of clover, so I thought it would be kind of cool to share some information on this. And so the Latin name is Trifolium arvense, right? And so this could be a hare's foot clover, it's commonly called, or rabbit's foot clover. And so essentially the leaves are trifoliate, right? So we have 3 leaflets, and they are pretty thin, skinny, right? They're lance-shaped, in other words, and so they look like clover leaves, but like skinnier, right? And they can be kind of hairy too. This plant does well in poor soils. I actually found it in like a gravelly type area of the yard. The soil was pretty compacted, so it was doing pretty well in a pretty relatively severe microclimate. And part of the reason it can do well is, of course, because it is a type of clover. It's in the legume family, and it can help to form relationships with beneficial microbes that can help to fix nitrogen in the soil. Now, it's important to note too, like if you do find this plant and if you have livestock, particularly horses or cattle, this plant may have somewhat of an adverse effect on some of these animals. So that's something to be aware of, but there are other animals who may also commonly consume this plant, like rabbits, goats, sheep, groundhog, those types of things. And so this plant is an annual, maybe sometimes a biennial, but it's not going to be like red clover where it'll be like 2 to 4 years or so before it dies back. The red clover, of course, is a perennial, but this hare's foot clover is probably more of an annual. And so it's a cover crop that you may have to sow again year after year if you choose to use it that way, unless it does really well at reseeding itself, right? And in some cases, in some places, it can reseed itself very well, as it may be somewhat of an invasive plant in certain areas, but that all kind of depends on where you are. So definitely check out your local jurisdiction and kind of determine if this plant is a good plant to include in your landscape or not. So this plant can also attract a bunch of different beneficial insects, different types of bees, bumblebees, honeybees, halictid bees, also different types of butterfly species like the orange sulfur, clouded sulfur, eastern-tailed blue, the northern cloudy wing, and then different types of birds like the mourning dove, northern prairie chicken, and the wild turkeys. And then it can also have a bunch of different ecological interactions as well. For more information, I'd highly encourage you to check out the Illinois Wildflower page on this particular plant. I have a link to it down in the description. So overall, this plant can be beneficial in a lot of different ecological interactions that it can form with other types of species. Of course, with the 2 caveats of course, one being you want to be aware of where you're growing this plant, like if it is an invasive plant in your area, or if it can have some beneficial effects in your area, right? And of course, this should be true for any plant that you grow. I'm talking to people around the world, so different plants are going to be native to different parts of the world where different people are. And then secondly, we also want to be aware of if we do have certain types of livestock like horses or cattle, that we can be aware of some of the negative effects of what this plant can cause and proceed accordingly. But aside from that, it's a very beautiful plant. It has some very cool ecological interactions, as I said, and it can help to fix nitrogen in the soil, and it can grow well and help to rehabilitate poorer soils. Thank you so much for checking out this video on the Hare's foot clover. It's a really pretty cool looking plant, and I look forward to learning and observing any more different types of ecological interactions that this plant can have with different species, different insect species, animal species, bird species in my garden. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.